Well, 2 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. This is the Rebel Room. That's what I've been calling it all day. They didn't want to put us center stage. They want to put us in the mini room and basically be second-class citizens, which I get. My sister's a doctor, so I'm used to being a second favorite child anyway. But appreciate you being here. Abhinav Kapoor, co-founder and CEO of Bicky. We are a customer data platform for restaurants. We basically take all of your customer data across point of sale, payments, online ordering, loyalty, reservations, Wi-Fi, wherever there's a breadcrumb of guest data, wherever there's a transaction, we pull it together. We build profiles on every guest, and then we help brands understand when they make a decision to grow sales, like launch a marketing campaign, launch a new menu item, change their pricing, open a new store. Instead of just looking at the 10 to 20% of guests that are in the loyalty program, or just looking at top-line sales, we try to give you the impact of those decisions on traffic, retention, frequency, the things that ultimately are the inputs to top-line sales in the first place. Proud to be here, proud to be at my fourth RFIS. I'm a veteran at this point now, and proud to share the stage with four very, I would say, interesting operators. We have a CTO, a digital and loyalty person, a restaurant and ops guy, and a founder. So our prep calls were a mess. We did not agree on anything, just based on the various perspectives, but I think that'll make for a more rich and interesting conversation here. I will just kick it off to you guys. We'll do some quick intros, and then I'll go into sort of like a high-level run of show here, but I'll pass it over to Mehdi, and we'll get going.
Hi guys, my name is Mehdi, and I'm the owner and founder of Crazy Pita Rotisserie and Grill, a 4-unit brand out of Las Vegas, Nevada. We're about to celebrate 20 years in business this coming August. So if that cut line to become a legacy brand, I guess 20 years can make it a legacy brand. We also have 2 virtual brands, Salad Menace and Chicken Genius, about 6 of those. And we're expanding throughout the equator between San Diego and Las Vegas and Florida.
Juan Lopez, Chief Restaurant Officer. I've been with Chief Restaurant Officer at Dave's Hot Chicken. Sorry, I've been with Dave for a little bit over 5 years. I started with Dave's when they were at 4 restaurants, and we're now up to 420 and growing about 2 restaurants a week. Multiple countries I can't even keep up anymore. We're in the Middle East, we're in Canada, we're in the UK. We are coming to Mexico, Singapore, later 2026, early 2027. So.
Hi, I'm Jay Jun, Senior Director of Digital and Loyalty at Churches. I've been there 4 years, and basically I was brought in the door to build the loyalty program. There was nothing there, scorched earth, and got to build it from scratch. So it's been a great ride, and happy to be here.
Chris Demery, CTO for Blaze Pizza. Been there just over 5 years. Prior to that, I built the Domino's tech stack, Bloomin' Brands, technology and operations, CKE, PF Chang's, and now Blaze.
Amazing.
Just over 200 locations.
Yeah. So the title of this is, I didn't title it, but Grinding Your Franchise into Omnichannel Overdrive. So we're going to talk about grinding, we're going to talk about franchising, we're going to talk about omnichannel. I think in terms of run of show here, the way I approached this and thought about it was like, what does omnichannel even mean in this day and age? It's like everything is omnichannel. Is it just a euphemism for be everywhere to all guests at all times? And if so, isn't that kind of just what it means to run a restaurant in the current environment, especially with the growth of digital and loyalty? So we're going to talk a little bit about like what omnichannel even means, how to, if the term has any value, and how to set yourselves up for success to be everywhere for your guests at any time. Then we're going to talk about what does it actually take to execute an omnichannel strategy. So Chris is going to touch mostly on like the first part on what omnichannel actually means with the tech, given his tech background. In terms of executing on omnichannel in restaurants, we're going to tap in Juan and Jay's expertise and Mehdi's to a slightly different extent based on what he's doing with Crazy Pita. But I think like the 3 of these people in particular have very good perspective on what does it look like to implement an omnichannel strategy in the restaurant to delight guests every single day across multiple channels when there are lines out the door, or when you're launching loyalty for the very first time and you have to get franchisees aboard. And then finally, we're going to talk about the ROI and measuring the ultimate success of an omnichannel strategy. How do you prove it? How do you communicate it to franchisees? How do you align other stakeholders in the company around your strategy specifically? and then we'll leave the last 10 minutes or so for questions. But with that, I want to jump into it. Chris, something that you said to me in one of our prep calls is, I hate the term omnichannel, which is great, being experts talking about omnichannel. So why don't we start there and tell us a little bit about why you hate the term omnichannel, what it actually means to you, and maybe just a high-level framing of like implementing omnichannel at a brand like Blaze in a competitive category where you have to be digital on third-party, first-party, off-premise, but you're also trying to bring omnichannel/digital in-store with kiosks. So set the framing for us, why you hate omnichannel, and then we can actually talk about what you're doing to
So
implement
hate
Blaze.
is a
Yep.
very powerful word. I hate it because almost every salesperson is going to come to you, and we have an omnichannel strategy. And so if it's a marketing person, typically they're talking about the guest experience for your brand is the same across whatever channels you're in. If you're talking to a technologist, they're talking about really their tech stack and how it's often confused with the concept of multi-channel. Like, how many channels do you have? So I hate the term because everybody uses it and nobody's talking the same language. So when I start talking omni-channel or multi-channel or guest-related, I always try to clarify that with partners. So understand the context when somebody is trying to sell you something or give you a product, whatever that happens to be, because the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
So that's why I said the term omni-channel. From a marketing perspective, I think some of the other panelists will talk about this. It's very important that the guest experience is the same across all the channels because your guests are fickle. And so technology-wise, we have to enable that with marketing, we have to enable it with operations, we have to enable it with the chief development officer, because if you're truly omni-channel from a marketing perspective, you have a good brand presence. That's the way I would talk about it. If you're talking technology, you really want to know all the devil in the details about what those costs are. And I think we'll get to some of those questions.
Yeah.
So that's omnichannel.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about when you say like you have to get on the same page with the different stakeholders internally in terms of like what omnichannel actually means and what the strategy actually is? Is there an example with Blaze specifically where you were bringing in a piece of technology and you effectively had to either train the marketing team or train the franchisees to adopt it and execute it, or at least from a marketing standpoint, get them comfortable with how to talk about or how to position the brand on that channel?
So I guess the way to relate it is technology supports everything. Within Blaze Pizza, I'm business partners with the CMO and the COO, and we talk almost on a daily basis around whether it's LTOs, whatever it happens to be. And as we introduce multi-channel technologies like kiosks, QR code ordering, third-party ordering, whatever it happens to be, when I'm talking to marketing, I'm talking about the collateral has to be seamless for the guests because the guests are who pay our bills. Yep. They're the ones that choose you over somebody else. When we introduced kiosks, we had to say, here's the experience. From an operations perspective, you can't disrupt operations by introducing a new channel through technology because they're going to mess it up. I think you heard yesterday, making consistent operations in the restaurant is the hardest thing to do. And as technology interjects itself, you have to be very careful about that.
Yeah.
And so that happened with QR code ordering and kiosks around how did we position those technologies to support dine-in experience.
Yeah. And then just to take it one step further, when you guys are rolling out kiosks or implementing kiosks, talk about the like soup to nuts implementation and how you actually get the team in store comfortable with, because it's a very interesting concept from Blaze's perspective where it's like walk the line, step by step. Someone sees the raw ingredient that they want on a pizza, they pick it, they put it on the topping, you put it in the oven, they get it a short time later. From an in-store digital kiosk perspective, it's totally different, right? I would imagine, because I still walk the line when I go to a Blaze. I haven't used the kiosk, so sorry. But talk about like when you're not actually looking at the raw ingredient, how do you train the team to actually execute on the guest experience differently when literally the thing that you are built on, which is showing somebody what they're, and preparing it in front of their eyes, is sort of abstracted away because now there's the kiosk for a very good economic reason, but now there's the kiosk in store specifically.
So we primarily target, from a guest experience perspective, we let the guests choose their journey. So the normal first-time guest that comes into a Blaze, they're like, I don't know what to do. right? How do I build your own pizza? Because that's what we're known for. So typically we try to let them walk the line. They can see the product because people eat with their eyes. They realize through the help of the Blazers that, oh, you can get whatever ingredients you want on your product. Typically, a kiosk or QR code ordering is for the person that already knows what they want, and they just want a faster experience. We are fast fired. So we cook our products in 3 minutes. Our objective is to give you your order within 9 minutes. By the way, we don't hit that very often right now. But in order to hit that, you have to measure speed. And so we build out an ROI. So and when I say that, that's another term that everybody overuses, right? Our kiosks drive an average ticket of approximately $2 to $3 to $7 higher average ticket. And there's lots of theories as to why that would happen. So you have to prove to the operator, this is a profitable engine channel for you, for your engaged guests. You're going to hear engaged a little bit later.
Yeah.
It's a Bicky term.
Shameless plug.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the other part, one of our KPIs is, how much is that guest tipping? Because if they tip less using a kiosk or QR code ordering than they do walking the line and having a pleasurable experience, the Blazers are going to say, I don't want them using the kiosk.
Yeah.
So they'll go turn the kiosk off.
Yeah.
So we proved out through pilots, average ticket's higher, tips are on par, and it does not disrupt operations.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I want to switch gears. Thank you for dealing with my grilling here. But switching gears to Juan a little bit. First of all, you're opening like 2 to 3 stores a week. Why? Separate. When you think about setting up a new store for success from day one, the visualization I have of a Dave's new store opening is you obviously have this powerhouse social media-driven marketing engine behind you. You announce you're coming to a new store or to a new city or a new town. When you open, you're quite busy on day one. The lines are out the door. Just talk about like when an NSO actually happens, how are you setting up the store for success where they can deliver on that in-store dine-in experience, number one. Number two, are stores set up with kiosk from day one? And then we can also touch on kind of when the right time to roll out third parties after that.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to quote Chris, who said this on this call. When we're introducing all sorts of channels, the goal is to have the restaurant not be able to tell where the order is coming in from.
Yeah.
So to the restaurant and to the team in the back of the house, they're just producing an order. It's just additional volume. It's just busier peak times than without the additional inputs coming in. But we also, because you said, the restaurants, day one, they open up super busy. We hold off on turning on third party or online ordering and sometimes kiosks. That's something new that we did this year. Just, really depends on how the restaurant is opening and how the team is performing. So we recommend to every franchisee to hold off at least a week before they kick on additional inputs, and then, depending on how that week goes, the franchisee decides to probably push it even more, a week or two more.
Yeah, and that's third party specifically you're talking about?
Third party and, like I said, kiosks as well. And
yeah, and is that specifically, when you guys are opening a new store, how often is it an operator that is new to the Dave system versus someone that is maybe already has a couple locations already in that market and then is opening the third store? Yeah. And then talk about like maybe how you treat those two different buckets of franchisees differently based on your omnichannel strategy.
It's. I hope there's no franchisees in here for Dave's, but that first restaurant.
They're all in the front row here.
I know.
Separate.
Ignore Andrew over there. That first restaurant, every franchisee, they know better than the franchisor. And I mean, being in the industry for the 19 years, that's been a hard lesson that we learned time after time. And being a franchisee myself, I know that very well, that whatever the franchisee or the franchisor says, they don't know what they're talking about. I know better. I've been doing this for a while. So, it was one of those things that we had to hold their feet to the fire and be like, that first one, that first location, please just follow our guidance, because we've done this a couple of times, and we know that you've done it for a couple of other brands, but you haven't done it for Dave specifically. This is your first one for Dave, so listen to what we're telling you, please, and then talk to other franchisees, because it doesn't work the same as it does in other concepts. So we asked them to follow the process for that first one, to hold off on.
Yeah, it's like wait the week,
Yeah,
basically.
just give it a week. Just
Yeah.
give it a week. Your hours of operation also don't go wild. Don't do 11 to 2 a.m. You know, hold off until you settle your team, and then after about 30 to 45 days, then make some adjustments, then make some tweaks, then extend your hours. You know, and you know, take on additional business. If you
Yeah.
can handle it.
And so for that last part too, where what are the starting hours typically when a new store opens?
11 to 10.
11 to
is what
10.
we're-
And then after a few weeks, you're like, hey, it's fine.
Right.
Open up late.
Yep.
and
Go
Go
extend
for
it
it.
to
When, I
whatever.
guess when like the operational.
Yeah,
things-
after you've seen the turnover take its effect, and
Yeah.
you know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Mehdi, switching gears to you a little bit, I guess being still a founder-driven brand, you've had, I think, probably more leeway than a typical franchisor to experiment. And something that I know we talked about this, 4 years ago, maybe at this point, was this idea of you were experimenting with this idea of omnichannel way that I think nobody else had at the time outside of a mom and pop Chinese restaurant near where I live in Queens, New York. But you had a virtual cashier, essentially. Talk us through, like that to me is a different form of omnichannel in the sense that you are basically bringing the guest to a new experience, presenting the brand in a different way that it hadn't been presented before. Can you talk about like that virtual cashier experience? What worked, what didn't? If you stuck with it, why? And go from there. Yeah.
One of the best things about being a small brand is we have the luxury to try. I think of my brands as like a research and development. Right after COVID, what he's talking about is we were one of the first restaurants that introduced virtual cashiers. A brilliant idea because I couldn't be in my stores, people were calling out. So we found this company out of Pakistan, and they were logging into a Zoom, and they were taking your orders as you come to the store, and then the order will go immediately to the kitchen, and they get. We found few challenges with them, as some people of our regular customers were not too happy with the virtual cashier, but they were happy with placing an order online and come pick it up. Like I mentioned earlier, the best thing about where we are is we can try, and the way we developed our system now that we're ready to launch it nationwide is we developed an ecosystem that focuses on two kind of people, basically the guests and our employees. And we're kind of thinking ahead within the next 10 to 15 years. As you know, it's real difficult to kind of change a system. If you're Dave, or if you have 200, 300, 400 locations, you cannot just go ahead and change your POS. So the route that we're taking is how we're combining every position within our units, from the marketing to the accounting to the onboarding of the employees to the data-driven that we can have in our hands instantly, and we can make all those decisions on how basically you can have your basic P&L at 5 p.m. of the day. So those are the things that we're implementing now. And that so far, with the team that we have in place, I think we are ready to pretty well launch it.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what specifically what you're bringing together, what you're implementing, and then what you're hoping the payoff is of? It sounds like this, obviously bringing the systems together, bringing the data together, and then I guess helping you kind of propel into the next growth.
Well, back to
growth
what
track.
Chris
Yep.
said earlier, is we're looking at all these omni-channels verticals that we're implementing. First, when you want to have the guest orders, either through your dining room or the to-go or an online order, you want to make that an easy transition. It's the same way if you were standing next to me and placing my order, you want to make that anywhere, either you want to take your order anybody wants, still like with the phone calls. We haven't done the phone calls yet where we have a better automated. We still have that human touch, and we're trying to make it as feasible, as smooth as it can be to take those omni-channel orders that we can get. Especially with our 3 vertical brands that we have the a micro concept, which will have mostly a lot of kiosks where people can place the order.
From any of the 3 brands, you're
From
saying?
all the 3 brands,
Got it,
yes. And it all depends where you are. I mean, for example, one of our home stores in Henderson, a lot of people don't like technology. They still want to come, and Mrs. Becky wants to come and place the order straightforward and looking at the cashier and make a conversation. Some of them, they still like to come to the store, place the order, and sit and wait at the table and give them a little snack and talk on their phone and go through Instagram and wait like 15, 20 minutes. Not everybody wants to have their food fast. And those are the channels that we kind of offer to every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of
Go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
my motto across the 5 brands I've had, as a franchisee, if you don't give the guest what they want, where they want, when they want it, you're automatically excluding a channel or a potential sales opportunity, because we're very pickle. We're very emotional people, and we change what we like to do, whether it's sit down, get fast, order online. And
Yeah.
so you kind of have to make that seamless.
Yeah, and then like just to like jump in and give like the macro level context of what we're seeing to Chris and Mehdi and to everybody's point here, honestly, of just being everywhere and available all at once, is we did this study where we were looking at basically guest frequency by demographic bucket for a bunch of our brands, and we were looking at like number of trips per brand per year based on income and based on age specifically, because like Chipotle, Taco Bell, McDonald's, they're all talking about, oh, we're losing lower income consumers, or actually we're fine with lower income consumers and we're positioning value and we're losing higher income consumers. So we tried to look at what are we seeing across our brands, and to really like drive home the point of how available you need to be and how competitive it is. Something that we've seen is that the number of trips per brand per guest has gone down 40% in 2025 from 2024. Meaning people used to visit 4 times per brand per year. Now they're down to 2.1 times, or in some cases, less than 2 trips per brand per year. And so if you're not available at the moment the guest wants you, on the channel that the guest wants you, at the hours that the guest wants you, through the app that the guest wants to place a transaction, maybe with the promo that they're specifically looking for to fulfill that order, to get that, that feeling of value, you're essentially just missing a sale, because, the next brand, the next transaction is literally a scroll away from a DoorDash screen or a DoorDash.
If I can just add
Yeah,
to that, lately we have the opportunity to open stores inside Walmarts, and it's completely different, demographic, it's inside the grocery store. For the last 4 months we've been open, we found out that lots of guests, they like 95% of the orders are to go. And we found out that people like to buy things at the unit level versus at the combo level. Surprisingly, when we switched to that model, we even changed our logo a little bit. We call it now Crazy Pita True Mediterranean Market, as we start introducing our food into little packages of $4.99, $5.50 each. The chicken by itself, the hummus, the rice, and surprisingly, it's one of the highest average checks that we have in all our stores.
Interesting. Oh.
If you think in Walmart, we have a check average of now of $15, $16. So we're kind of now redesigning all our model to look like a supermarket inside Walmart.
Right.
And the message is like you gotta adapt to every neighborhood or demographic you do business in.
Yeah.
I'm an old-fashioned guy, and I don't do drive-thrus. I go to Starbucks, I like to order my coffee, and then get in my car and leave. So.
Yeah.
But I like to pay by the app.
Right. Speaking of app, I want to tag in Jay here. Jay, walk us through kind of what the journey of, I think you've done some really interesting things with loyalty from a mega QSR perspective. And I think the thing that has always impressed me specifically whenever we talk about how you implemented loyalty is, look, there's a lot of follower models. When you talk to any of the large loyalty vendors, they will say, look, everybody does, $9 when you spend $99, or 10 points for every dollar spent, and then you get something free at 100.
Yep.
But the structure of your program is actually rooted in who your guests are, how they visit your brand, the neighborhoods that your restaurants are located in. So before we kind of get into that, talk a little bit about what the mandate was from either the franchisee or maybe it was the private equity perspective, who were like, hey, we need our own loyalty program. Just start the journey there for us.
So, the really simple math is, hey, everybody else has a loyalty program and we don't, so we need one. I think as we were designing the program, what we tried to do was look at signals across the business that included, hey, we do a ton of drive-through business. We do a lot of, not as much in store. There are things like factoring in, hey, we have to make it easy for the team member as well. We don't want to add one more thing for them to do, because when I did training, the person doing the drive-through headset was also preparing something, food on the side. It was incredible. Like, trying to give our teams one more thing to do was a real problem. And so a lot of the focus really was, how do we make it easy both for our team members, but also for the guest? And I think that, as we were designing the program, part of what we were looking for was familiarity, but also simplicity. I think part of what we found at the time that we were starting, this was 3 years ago when we were designing the program, we just saw complexity. And our guests are lower income families in underserved neighborhoods, and they just don't have the time. They're blue collar workers that just, all they want is their dinner for their family.
Yeah.
They want to get in and get out. And so, the simplicity was an important aspect of it. The other thing too was we knew that our guests were very value driven, and so trying to make sure that, at least for me, personal frustration was with loyalty programs is you spend and you spend and you spend, and all I got was this, right? And I think that was going to really alienate our guests. So even in the number, we wanted to say, hey, you know what? With one visit of with $30, you could actually redeem enough points for an actual reward that you wanted. Even the welcome offer, that was something that we considered where it was, I don't know if it's controversial, but we asked, what do you want for your sign-up offer if we have a loyalty program? Shocker, it's chicken. It wasn't a side, it wasn't a dessert,
It was the hero item, basically.
It's the chicken.
Yeah.
And so, knock on wood, we've eclipsed 2 million members in under 2 years. And so I think all I can do at this point is assume I think we got it right.
Yeah.
But we're still learning.
Yeah.
We're still
But I think the important call out there is the simplicity of the structure, number one. Number two, this is a trend that we've seen. If you look at kind of all the big brands like Domino's and people who have been revamping loyalty recently, the thing that they're doing is actually they're lowering the threshold to redeem an offer, right? Like Domino's used to be that same spend $100 and you get an offer, and they said, look, we're going to lower it to $50. If you get to $50, that's 1.5, 2 visits for them, and so cutting it to half as much time, half as many visits to feel like the guest is getting an incentive actually has the reverse effect of getting the guest to order more frequently because they feel like they are constantly earning into something. The thought is coming to mind now in tech, right? When you give equity to an employee, you vest, right? You have 4 years. You have 4-year vesting, and something we always say as a founder and when you're running a tech brand is you always want to feel like your team is vesting into something, even though they vested 2 years and they still got half their grant to go. The reason it's so common to do a refresher grant and give them a little bit more equity after 2 years is so they feel like, oh, it's just 2 more years and I'm getting more. It's just 2 more years and I'm getting more. It's that constant gamification, for lack of a better term, for giving the guest a feeling that they are vesting into something and that the next reward is just right around the corner. It's just another visit away. It's just another visit and a half away. And I think you do that really well. The flip side I have for you, though, is what is the impact to franchisees and on food costs on basically making the hero item for your loyalty program the most accessible thing, and then also lowering the threshold at which guests can redeem those offers? Is there pushback from franchisees who are like, you're making it easier for me to basically discount now, essentially? And how do you push back? How do you show them the ROI? And now we're going to the tail end of our conversation, but how do you prove to them that this is actually working?
A lot of the conversation as we were socializing the program, and when we did a whole roadshow, went into our major markets, met with the franchisees. They were certainly concerned about things like dumpster divers and people that were just, getting, because the offer is either free, either 2-piece leg and thigh with purchase or 3 tenders, and so with any purchase, and so you could get just a sauce and then some tenders, and that would be all. I think what we're using, that's where the data, really speaks volumes. Is we're seeing the average order values, prove out hey, this is worth it, right? When we thank our guests as part of a rewards program, they're gonna reward us back, and so we were able to alleviate a lot of those concerns. We did all the math, showed them, hey, this is what we're looking at in terms of discount rates per transaction. And I think that the journey hasn't been perfect. I think we've maybe over-discounted a couple times, but we've course-corrected already, and that's just been the journey of refinement.
Yeah.
And learning as we go, because again, we weren't making assumptions about like, oh, we know everything about loyalty. It was just, we had to see how the program was going to play out with our guests.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to switch back to Chris, because you brought up the economics of kiosk a little bit before. I have friends who run kiosk companies, and what they often tell me is that they can prove the average check lift, and they can prove the increased visibility and data when you're driving digital transactions in store, and it's still super hard to get a franchisee to basically be like, yeah, all right, let's put that in the store. Can you talk about, again, like as a champion of the technology internally, who believes that it's making a difference for the brand, how do you go, I guess, what's the right mix of numbers plus art a little bit in terms of getting adoption internally from franchisees to implement this new technology in store?
So the way, based on my experience, kiosks are an optional experience, right? They work in some markets, they may or may not work in other markets. So you have to offer a financial leasing or capital model that a franchisee is willing to invest in. So you have to offer both sides. If they have the cash to invest, let's just say you put 2 kiosks in, it costs $10,000. You have to show them what that cost is going to be if you have it, but you also have to offer a leasing program that says, hey, you can pay this off over 3 years.
Yeah.
So besides the kiosk, you have the EMV devices, you have the cabling, power, all the pieces that are associated with that. You have to build out an ROI model that says, this is what our kiosks are showing right now. At Blaze, approximately probably 12 to 14% of the people that walk into the restaurant choose to use the kiosk, and that incremental average order value is your payback. So right now, ours is about 9 months for a $12,000 investment. At the end of that 9 months, if you paid it up front, you're now driving, depending on the vendor you choose, we have two different vendors, you're driving between $400 to $1,200 incremental revenue into your restaurant every month. And so you have to prove that. If you're not seeing 12 to 14% of your dine-in guests coming in, it's going to be a longer payback.
Yeah.
But one thing I learned,
If I can just
if
add-
there's no line to skip, a lot of people will not skip the line. That's what a kiosk is for. There's a long line, I'm going to skip the line, I'm going to use the kiosk, or they're just so comfortable they need speed of service.
Yeah.
So-
But with the technology today, you really don't have to spend that much money. Spend like $3,000 or $5,000 on a kiosk. I mean, nowadays you can buy a tablet, and you just can go Bluetooth, just like any technology, like any TV or anything, and you'll be able, as long as you're within the network. And the network nowadays, they can range up to like 50 feet. You can really take that tablet and you can do a stand outside your store and do a barbecue if you want to and take the orders. One of the things we're trying to add Crazy Pita is we're doing a handhelds in addition. So as our servers go around the floor, they can go up to the table while they clear, and they can add additional desserts or beverages or while you're still sitting in a fast casual environment.
Yeah.
And that's what I mentioned earlier. Look at the systems you are putting in place that you can be able. At the end of the day, we're in the business to make money. It doesn't matter. We just give you good service. And you got to start thinking ahead now with the technology that we have in place. How can you take any vertical that you have in your restaurant and make it a money-making machine? And then count when you pay your rent, every square foot matters.
The one caveat to that is I would say with a kiosk, there's no judgment. So when you're standing, if you're doing a line buster, that's what I would call the tablet.
Yeah.
And the person taking your order goes, what would you like? So at Bloomin' Brands, the worst thing you could order at Outback was like a bloomin' onion.
Bloomin' onion. Let's go.
I mean, it's only
My
like
go-to.
6,000 calories. Why would
Worth
you?
it.
And so when we did digital ordering at Bloomin' Brands, our P-mix on bloomin' onions went up. And our theory was there's no judgment. Because if you order a bloomin' onion at Outback, people are going, what in the world are you eating? This is a big, so.
Imagine
there's
ordering one solo.
There's a couple different, you have to look at those variables and assess all of that stuff. Linebuster tablets have a perfect use case. They are less expensive. It's just another channel, depending on how you lay out your technology and support operations.
Yeah.
We tested
ahead,
kiosks for a little bit over a year, and that's because I was a big proponent against kiosk. I was really worried that it was going to negatively impact the guest experience because the touch points at Dave's we have is only two. The guest talks to the cashier and the guest talks to the expo person, and that's it. And I was worried that it was going to take from, you know, a potential positive opportunity for building on that. But Chris says it's a 12 to 15% usage. We see 20 to 30% on in restaurant, and I mean, I had to shut up and roll it up.
That's right.
The learning here is you have to have the data to evaluate the data because unfortunately,
Nice
unfortunately
segue.
for
Let's
me,
go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about data.
is the truth.
Yeah.
If the data doesn't prove it out, it's probably not a good investment.
Yeah.
And if the billion-dollar man tells you get a kiosk,
Yeah.
get a kiosk. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't question.
Yeah. Let's talk. We have a couple minutes here before I want to open to the audience for questions, but let's talk about the data a little bit. Chris, you mentioned engaged, and so now we're into the shameless Bicky plug portion of the panel here. But talk to us a little bit. I think you guys obviously as a pizza brand do a lot of promotion around Pi Day specifically, and so talk to us about how you promote something as big as Pi Day across all these channels and execute it well, and then what the data taught you.
So we implemented Vicky, as you said, probably last October, and we started getting insights very quickly. And so we did all the traditional integrations, point of sale, credit card, all sorts of different things that Vicky provides. We learned that our most prominent guests are women with 2 kids, probably between 30 and 45 years old. And different target audience than a pizza buyer. Like a Domino's pizza buyer who I used to work for was a guy or party people. And so what we learned on Saturday is that, well, we also learned that we have a huge funnel loss. If you've ever done funnel analytics, we're bringing a lot of people in, and for various reasons, they don't come back as frequently as they do at Dave's Hot Chicken or at Starbucks or anyplace else. On Saturday at Pi Day, the people that came in were our engaged guests, the people that love us. They came back for that special. We saw that, you can see it almost immediately from a data perspective. And so it sets our mind ready for next Pi Day. For those, that's March 14th, just for everybody. That's our biggest sales day of the year, and I'm sure all of us have like our favorite days. Yeah. I don't know if is there a chicken day?
There's a national.
Every day is chicken day.
Every day's
chicken day. Yeah.
There is a
He's a sales guy.
National Crazy Pita Day. And that's our own holiday that we claimed.
Yeah.
David Reff created it.
Yeah. There you go.
And Julie Wade has executed it.
There you go. There we go.
But the data allows you to target those guests.
Yeah.
Whether they're engaged or lapsed or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. Excellent. Jay, want to add
Well,
anything there?
it's interesting. We've been testing kiosks, and one of the things that I think our franchisees have been super interested in is really in terms of purpose for the kiosk, right? It was partially labor costs, or especially in California, right? They're just finding it untenable. But from a average order value, when we demoed it, they were very interested in like, hey, we can cross-sell, and again, no judgment.
No judgment, yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that they were very interested in that aspect of it. For me, as a loyalty practitioner, it's more about, hey, this is part of our first-party data, strategy where we have an interface that allows someone to just simply put in a phone number. Very few brands have that at the EMV. The CVS's and the Walgreens and the Krogers of the world, they have that built in, but for restaurants, you just don't see it very often. And it's a point of friction. And so I think that part of what we are working towards is how do we make it easier for guests to check in and earn points and participate in the program.
So just think about how hard it is to train your greeter, your cashier, to consistently upsell. About a 5% probability that that's going to occur. Technology allows 100% upsell, whether the guest chooses it or not. And then you get the loyalty part of it. A kiosk can tell a guest, you have free stuff before they order their food. You have a free cheesy bread. You have a free pizza. You have a free pita. You have free hot wings, whatever it happens to be. And a lot of times greeters don't do that upsell because they're too busy.
Too busy.
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Would love to open it up for questions in our last kind of 7 minutes here. Yeah, we'll just one up front here, please. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm wondering, just in terms of kiosks, I've seen some restaurants or some locations not use cash, or go away from cash and use credit cards only. Have any of you guys experimented with that? And any insights you share? We have not. We're at about 3% cash.
3%.
3%.
Wow.
And so almost everything we do is credit cards. We have some franchisees that don't do tips, but right now nobody that doesn't do cash.
Yeah. I think, Jay, probably based on where your stores are located, you have to take cash.
When I started 3 years ago, the story I was hearing was 50% cash, right? And so that has shifted pretty quickly, where I think we're maybe closer to like 30% now. And I think, maybe it had something to do with the app and the ordering experience online, where credit cards are being used more, but it's a real consideration in terms of whether the kiosk is going to work. I think that's where we're trying to understand, like, what is it going to make sense? I think the franchisee perspective of it is that, hey, this is going to save us some money and allow us to just focus on producing the food and getting it out the door for the guests. But not everybody has. If you read a couple Google reviews for her businesses, sometimes it's they're stressed out, and they're not always the nicest when they're serving our guests. But the kiosk takes away some of that and alleviates some of that, I think, potentially.
Think about operationally. There are kiosk vendors that will sell you kiosks that collect cash. How often do you have to empty it? What do you all the money you have to track? I mean, we all know what the risk is associated with having $10,000 in your, safe. So the more we can move away from cash, I think the better it is. But we would never turn it down.
Yeah. Juan or Mehdi, anything on cash?
I mean, I think we only have one franchisee in the system that isn't doing cash, but everybody
That
else
is not doing cash.
That is not doing cash.
Got
It's
it.
one, and that's 2 restaurants
Yeah.
in the whole system. Everybody else is it's cash. It's an additional method for the guests to pay them and getting convenient for them. So.
If I could eliminate cash, I would. Just make sure you check the state laws before you eliminate it. But it costs a lot of money to take cash nowadays. By the time your cashier counts it in the morning and the manager takes the deposit, you're losing at least $20 to $30 a day. It adds up.
Yeah.
And plus the mistakes, and you have teenagers who are not counting on their calculator. So, but 10% of my business is still cash.
Yeah.
And that's quite a lot of money
That's
to
a
walk
lot.
away from. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Cash used to be much more important when you had to tip out your team at the end of the night. I don't know how much.
Pre-omnichannel.
Yeah, pre-omnichannel,
Bring
yeah.
it back, yeah.
And so if you had to tip out your team members at the end of the night, you needed cash. At Bloomin' Brands, we had to have cash delivered,
Yeah.
right? Which is crazy. Like at Fleming's, you make $300 a night. At Blaze, we don't have that same issue because it's a different tipping model. But
Right. It's a good question. Any other questions? In the back, please. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's specifically for Chris because of Blaze's model. Just curious with the kiosk. You have a kiosk, you have your line. How do you manage that guest expectation? You need a channel.
So we have the idea of a hospitality ambassador. Some people, they call it different things. The guests choose. That's what we found is it's a good idea to have somebody kind of explain it. But when you have this big thing sitting in front of you, right in front when you walk in, the guest goes, oh, I've used kiosks before. I'll just order that because there's 4 people standing in line. I'm going to get my order in front. We also have dual make lines. So we do not encourage you to use kiosks if the CHITS print or your KDS interrupts the manufacturing process. The person in the line is like, whose pizza are you making? You're not making mine, right? So we do a dual make line. We call it a digital make line, and it works perfectly.
Good question. I think we have time for one more. Yeah.
As it relates to this topic, what is a piece of technology or a vendor partner part of your tech stack that you feel like is irreplaceable?
Sorry. Good question. Yeah.
In my model, it's my kitchen display platform. Some people would call it a kitchen display system, which is an electronic make line. Ours has a large language model on the back end. And for digital orders, when a digital order drops, we text message the guest, we have your order. So I'm from Domino's. I built Pizza Tracker. And so I replicated it through digital versus just online. And when your order's ready, we tell you it's ready. So for off-premises orders, our guests start showing up on time. If you do a lot of third-party or first-party, the number one problem is nobody believes their quote time because they're artificially made up. So for us, it's our kitchen display platform. Can I?
Yeah,
It's not Bicky.
No, shout out. We don't do KDS. It's okay. Go for it.
So it's Fresh Tech, Fresh KDS out of Nashville. I helped them. I used to have a large engineering team at Domino's, and in the last 4 places, I haven't had large engineering teams. So I couldn't build anything I wanted. I said, go build this, and I'll use it. And 4 years later, they came back and said, here it is. I had it up and running in 2 days.
But I recommend nowadays, look at anything that is driven by AI. So that way you have accurate data anytime you want it. And that's what we're switching to. AI driven from KDS orders to any channel we take has to go through AI. So that way it's logged in and you know every data that comes through and who bought it and who didn't buy it.
For us, it would probably be Olo. Again, the goal is for the team not to know where the order is coming from. It doesn't matter. It's in order. So Olo will take everything, and I mean, it just prints it out. You know, just this is what you're required to do. Just do it. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, who it's going to.
And they do everything today.
They do everything. Yeah. Order
Don't
and
start, Chris. Don't start.
and Vicky, of course.
On that note, well,
Sorry, it was like they are one of our business partners also. So I would, from an e-commerce perspective, I don't know what your off-premise is like 70 or 80%, right? First party, third party.
First party, no, we're like at 20%.
20%. So our total is 30, and we want to get it to 50 because it's people want to order the way they want to order when they're emotionally feeling however they feel.
I mean, I think in terms of one, I don't think it's any one technology. I think what I was fortunate to be able to do was purpose select technology partners that were talking to each other. So Punch, it's sort of the legacy loyalty platform. I would grill them about like, hey, you've got old tech, you've got some tech that you need to get rid of. Turns out that their webhooks feed our CRM platform, and that data integration was a piece of cake. And so that allows us to be more data-driven in terms of messaging and that sort of thing, where we're not wholly dependent on Punch for messaging, but I think that it's looking at the entire stack, and I think that ultimately just being able to get actual insight on your customers. When I walked into churches, it was a lot of belief. Our franchisees believe that all those statements about what they believe versus what the data can show. And so, yes, for us it's loyalty, but I think for me it's first part. It's the data strategy. It's like actual customer insight that we can leverage for the business.
Can I add one thing? If you want to go into Overdrive, just don't look at the ordering experience or the channel ordering experience. You have to look at the total customer journey. If you can't take care of your guests, whatever channel they order on, they will go someplace else next time.
it's a good note to end it on. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.